What's up, guys? It's me, Coach Mills here, and today we're going to be breaking down our third and final installment of the tier list series, talking about the support meta. Supports really are the linchpin in a lot of compositions right now, so we're going to break down exactly which ones are the best, which ones are not doing so hot, and what compositions and characters they work the best with. So we're going to break it all down, but do me a huge solid and smash that like and subscribe, and if you want private coaching, links will be in the description down below. Now, we got to start off with Kiriko. This will give us a little bit of context for the rest of the list, and it's no surprise. Kiriko is in the S tier. Kiriko is still freaking phenomenal. Suzu is such a powerful ability, capable of stopping ults, denying really powerful plays and abilities, and Kiriko, as an individual, has just infinite potential to have impact over the battlefield. Not only can you be aggressive with your off angles and get key pickoffs or bait out certain utility, but you're incredibly hard to punish with both a teleport and something that makes you immortal. And don't even get me started about your ultimate, which is one of the best ultimates in the game. Kiriko can be played also in just about any composition. You could be played in a poke composition with Sigma or Ramatra. You could be played in a brawl composition going in aggressively. You can play with a dive and dive in. You can go and help your off-angling DPS win duels. You can basically play in any composition and enable it very, very well, and you're objectively very strong. So yeah, Kiriko is just, she's just the best thing to be doing right now, just about, period. And yeah, I don't really think that that's a hot take in any way. Now, let's talk about Zenyatta, because some interesting things have happened to Zenyatta moving into this meta, and honestly, Zenyatta was already looking pretty good in the previous meta. Zenyatta was actually looking pretty good and was seeing quite a bit of play in other regions like Korea, but players just weren't really leveraging that as much. Now, Zenyatta does have some natural predators flying around, right? Specifically, Tracer is like Zenyatta's natural predator. However, when we talk about the tank mirror, maybe it's the Ramatra v Ramatra tank mirror, or the Orisa v Orisa, Orisa v Ramatra, whatever the case may be, or let's say you're playing a dive composition, Discord is insanely strong, like just ridiculous. You can just win the tank matchup every single time with it. And the sacrifice that you have to make is just the fact that you're so freaking fragile. Like, you could die so damn easily on Zen, unfortunately. But if you are allowed to live, and you can keep a Discord on the other tank, your tank's just gonna roll them. Your team's just gonna roll them. The Ramatra's gonna die, and you're just gonna win. And it's freaking insane. Now, that doesn't mean that Zen is all of a sudden a meta tier support, because like I said, the living part is the problem, and the living part is hard. It's freaking hard. You have to position very well on Zenyatta, far away, so that you're not in range of some of this close range utility dump, but not too far that you'll isolate yourself if a Tracer dives you. I do think that if you're allowed to be left uncontested, or if you have the mechanical skill to fight or kite away or win some of your matchups, Zen could be really phenomenal. But I'm only putting him at the top of B tier. Still really, really good. And yeah, Discord is the real deal. Now, next up, let's talk about Ana. Ana's a support that has gotten a huge power boost in some previous patches, mainly to deal with the Hog menace. We've seen Ana's power level get risen to Hog and Kiriko and match them. Now that Hog is slightly removed from the picture, still around, but not as much as before, Ana doesn't have anything to directly hit as easily as Hog was before, but her power level remains, and she's still really, really great. Her abilities are amazing, and you can win team fights with nades and sleeps, and you could overload Suzu really, really well if you're able to hit impactful utility with both. Now, I do think that the key to making Ana just a dominant force when you're grinding ranked is actually trying to get as much aggressive impact as possible. Ana can output a ton of heals in between doing other things. Heal a little bit here, damage a little bit there, and then also look for moments in between to get utility use off. Now, just keep in mind that depending on the composition you're in and how likely you are to get peel, you have to be either aggressive or more passive with your utility use. Like, if you're up against a Winston composition and you don't have anyone in your comp that's gonna peel for you, you gotta be really disciplined with that sleep. You could just die if you waste that sleep, if you throw it across the map, if you try to sleep something, and even if you hit it, you could get punished right away. So definitely keep that in mind. Keep in mind the overall output and pressure that your team is putting out, and whether or not you need to position back as the fight progresses. But yeah, Ana's going to be great in a lot of compositions. And I do think that while Orisa is really good at shutting down an Ana and can bully an Ana, Ramattra gets bullied a lot by an Ana. Nade is really good against Ramattra, and Sleep is really good at shutting down the ultimate. But I'm going to put Ana in the A tier. Phenomenal pick, and probably one of the best supports to grind with throughout the majority of ranks. I would say when we get to the top, the tippity top ranks, maybe not the best thing to be doing, but for most ranks, you just have so much agency over your game. So yeah, phenomenal pick. Now we do got to talk about Mercy. And Mercy has a weird problem going on, a weird situation. So like most of the time in the past, from the top down metas, right? We've never really seen like I'm not going to say never. We have seen it, but not very often do we see a Mercy meta or something that is dominated by Mercy. Mercy is a support that always actually works really well the lower in rank you go, because enabling a DPS is just phenomenal. If that DPS is good, giving them that pocket makes them even better. And we see this reflected in things like Farm Mercy, just dominating low ranked in console play. We always have seen like DPS players get pocketed. I even think back to like people pocketing freaking, I don't know, Hanzos and Genjis and Cassidys. Like this happened all the time back in Overwatch 1. And it really just happened in the past that if there was no coordination and your tanks weren't coordinated enough to shut down a pocketed DPS, which oftentimes wasn't true in ranked, especially as you went down in rank, Mercy was just very, very strong and was always strong because of it. And that's why Mercy could always win. But right now we're in a situation where not only is that still true, but Mercy is also enabling some truly busted DPS on the high end. And that's mainly like a Sojourn problem and maybe an Ashe problem. Maybe it's a Widow problem. But regardless, Mercy pocketing a DPS from the top meta is so freaking powerful. And it's always been strong in the majority of the lower metas. And that hasn't changed. And there's a million different DPS that you can pocket that changes different axes. Whether you're giving your Widow a second chance at life, whether you're just making Sojourn an absolute monster in the hands of the right DPS, you're making Echoes and Pharahs just run rampant on Koth maps. I think that, yeah, it's pretty clear right now we're in a Mercy meta still. The next character that we got to talk about is Mora. Now, this is a character that is going to be stronger the less and less people play Overwatch as intended. Now, what do I mean by that? Mora's a support that is super, super good at not only dueling like people that don't have the mechanical skill to punish you, because you don't have to aim. Well, they have to hit very precise shots to shut you down because of how much burst healing you can give yourself. You have mobility, you have a powerful momentum-based ultimate. I think all of that combines together to make you like a god in the lower ranks when you don't rely on your team and the mechanical skill is low and, you know, the general fights are low. But when we talk about the meta, when we talk about Orisa, Ramattra, some of these matchups that are happening on the tank level, Mora just doesn't interact in a meaningful way. She can pump out heals. Damage is negligible. Like, you could pump out damage on basically any freaking tank or DPS. You can still pump out damage that will more than make up for the slight amount of damage you get from Mora. And we just gotta think about what a lot of the other supports have to offer in addition to what Mora can offer. And that just makes Mora pretty weak if we're talking about the top-down play. Now, I could give Mora, you know, some stock here and say, you know, she really dominates low elo. She dominates, you know, sub-plat. So I could put her, you know, up in B tier. Or I could come at it from a top-down perspective and say, when players are peeling properly, poking properly, playing more meta characters, the utility that Mora provides is just nothing compared to Nade, Sleep, Suzu, Damage Boost, Res, Discord. Like, those are really, really strong. And when you compare those directly to Mora, Mora's not even close. So this is where I would actually put Mora when we're talking about top down. Like I said, you could still get away with whipping out Mora, but I would justify, or I would suggest, not being a Mora main or one trick or anything like that. I would say Mora is a good support to have in your back pocket when you need her. But as far as what other utility you could provide to a fight, Mora just provides the least amount, or one of the least amounts. So I'm putting her all the way down here. Next up, let's talk about Lucio. Lucio is strong, yes, but unfortunately, there's not a lot of room for Lucio. And I know that that's a weird thing to say, but when we talk about like really strong supports right now. Mercy and Kiriko, insanely powerful supports with good utility that either enable or can make plays themselves, or a mix of both. Lucio just doesn't match anything that's going on over there. Can't enable a pocket, can't shut down a pocket, can't enable a tank to shut down a pocket, can't do any of that, right? And then in addition to all those things, when one-shots are happening, like when Widow is being played a lot, when Sojourn Pocket's being played a lot, when one-shots are happening, you're not really given a lot of window to like save fights either with B or peel before someone dies. You could also die yourself by flying around the walls. A lot of Lucio players know these days that you can't wall ride everywhere anymore, or else you're just going to get railed to death. That doesn't mean Lucio's bad. It doesn't mean that Lucio can't contest off-angling DPS that are solo. Doesn't mean that you can't get a ton of value on maps or be played with the dive or help your team or peel. And it doesn't mean that your ultimate isn't still one of the best ultimates in the game, but it does mean that Lucio isn't the apex predator right now. So Lucio's actually going to get put, I think, right there in A tier. I think you could probably interchange her here, either above or below Ana. A really good character, could be played in the proper meta, but when we talk about the top-down meta, the de facto best thing to be doing, it's definitely these top two over these two. Next up, let's talk about Brig. And another one where it's a little bit controversial. We do know that Brig is going to be getting a ultimate change very soon, and that might make Brig more viable. Maybe it'll make her less viable. I have no idea. We'll see what that actually does to Brig. But there's a lot of problems with Brig, and I've talked about these extensively, and they're fundamental to Brig right now. Her kit is just not strong enough to do what you want to do on Brig. When you're trying to brawl, Brig is too fragile. When you're trying to peel, she doesn't have the tools to stop a dive very well because she has no stun. Her shield is weak. Her health is weak. There's a lot of things about Brig that just doesn't fit in right now. And I'm not saying that you can't win with Brig. And I'm not saying you can't get Brig to work, because both those things are true. There are people that climb to GM with Brig every single day, just like with Mora, just like with any low-tiered character that we got to talk about. But when you think about the utility that a character provides, I want you to think about the utility of the characters up here. Think about what they do to the tank matchups. Think about what they can do to help their DPS, to help win team fights. And then think about what Brig can truly do. She can't stop a dive completely. Oftentimes, she'll just get swept up along with it. She's not good at shutting down or 1v1ing anybody just about ever. And she's just overall weak. Ultimate's weak. There's a lot of things about Brig that need fixing or need improvement if you want Brig to see play. And I actually am going to put Brig in the D tier as well. These two, I know, are just going to give people tilted. It's going to be fun. But yeah, if we're looking at it from the top-down meta, if we're looking at it from an actual meta, there's just no place for these two characters when we think about what is actually meta in the game. So now we move on to Baptiste, and Baptiste is strange because Baptiste can be really strong in the right composition. But if we look at Baptiste in the head-to-head with some of the other supports, I don't necessarily think he has the highest output of damage. Immortality Field oftentimes comes across as a harder to use Suzu, and he doesn't have a ton of maps where he can abuse his high ground mobility. Now, if we started to get some maps back, like some high ground maps, like New Bonnie, for instance, or Hollywood, I think he's a little bit better in maps like that. But right now, also, when we think about a lot of the spam, he just can't interact or create utility that interacts very well with like pocketed DPS or off-angling DPS besides his damage. But the other supports can do that as well, and they have something else that like benefits them. Doesn't mean that Baptiste is bad by any means. I just think that Baptiste is a bit weaker than all the utility that the higher characters provide. And also, his ultimate isn't fantastic. Like, it's not bad, but it's not going to win you any team fights in the same way that, like, any of these top ultimates, maybe outside of Mercy's ult, but that's forgivable because you're getting one-shots when you play her. You're getting a ton of one-shots. But, yeah, I'm going to put Baptiste in the C tier. And I think that this is my support tier list. I don't think it's fair to put Baptiste in the same tier as these characters, but I also don't think it's fair to put Baptiste in the same tier as Zen. I think that this is where I would leave things to lie. Yeah, I mean, we could say something like this. I think this is good. This is good, but I do want to pass the question off to you. what buffs and nerfs would you like to see going forward to shake up this support meta, and why? I specifically would like to see an increase in cooldown and something to do with Kiriko. I don't necessarily think you need to do anything to Mercy as is. If you remove the one shot from freaking Sojourn, I think that like nerfing Sojourn specifically, we can just wait and see, or enabling dive characters I think could put a lot of pressure on Mercy and probably move her back down. And, you know, I think maybe you could buff Mora. I don't think you need to. I think she's perfectly fine with her role and the place that she is, what she does. I don't think anyone really wants a Mora meta, or I would say most people don't. And then, of course, we're seeing Brig changes, so we'll have to wait and see. But you let me know how you feel about this tier list. Do you agree, disagree? Who's your favorite support to play and why? Smash that like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.